The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another edition here as we get ready for March Madness of K4Wins. Go to K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com, free site. You can get on there and subscribe. We've got a monster show for you set up today. We'll go around the board. Gregory, he knows what's going on, man. He's played both sides for the last 4 decades, knows exactly what's happening. We're handicapping. Kip Keefer is the executive director, editor of the Las Vegas Sun. He's down there at Ground Zero in Las Vegas right now. And, of course, Kip Keefer, my radio partner, TV host as well, ABC 3340, the starting lineup, which you can also see Case on every Saturday morning from 10:30, 11 o'clock. We get another show coming up this Saturday morning. Kip Keefer, executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. Gentlemen, how you doing? We ready for some March Madness, baby? I got some Tony Kurre-isms, right? You ready? Go ahead.
Yeah. Is it going to be March Madness or March Chalk?
Oh, you know what? It's turning out to be chalk. I will tell you this. I spent more time on this bracket this year than I have in the last 10 years combined. Usually I just go off the top of my head. I'm usually on some radio program. We're doing it. This year, I actually put some time into it, so we'll see what happens. Only 2 teams in the last 20 years, Case, who have won the national title have not had blue in their uniform. Can you name them?
Oh man, this one's throwing me off. I was waiting for the first. I don't call them this, but what Kai calls useless Tony Kurre facts.
This is
not have blue. I mean, it's not. It's not coming to me right away to be.
Let's go with the Baylor. Tough. Let's go with the Baylor Baylors and those Louisville Cardinals. Those are the only 2 teams in the last 2 decades that did not have blue in the uniform. Someone tell me who had the best ATS this year in college hoops. Case.
UC San Diego.
Kai.
No idea.
Kip.
I'll say, gosh, I don't know. I just went blank. So
they're playing the Alabama Crimson Tide in the first round. That Robert Morris Colonials.
Oh, Robert Morris! I know they won 30 games and like 10 in a row. There are. I just read today. There are 7 teams coming into the first round on 10 or more game winning streaks. Case just mentioned UC San Diego. They've won 15 in a row coming into this.
Crazy. Robert Morris 26-7 against the spread this year, by far the best in college hoops. And I threw this question out to you guys a couple of weeks ago, and we'll go around the horn. I'll start with you, Kai, first. SEC of the field to win a national title this year. What do you got now?
SEC.
Okay. Case?
Well, specifically Florida.
Field. I need to find that prop, but I would be. I like the field there.
Okay. What do you like?
You've got 14 of the 68 teams that are from the SEC. So I mean, it's the greatest odds any has ever been, for a conference. But I mean, I only because I feel so strongly about Florida. Otherwise, I would absolutely go field, like Kate said. But I just you're not going to get me off Florida. The only team I think can beat them is St. John's.
Kip, you like the SEC of the field?
Well, I'm an SEC homer, but I don't know. I know Florida's playing just out of their mind right now, but I just can't get the image of that game in Athens out of my head from a couple weeks ago where they shot 21% in the first half. They're not they're not the greatest team of all time. They can throw in a clunker, but they are playing unbelievably well right now. But it pains me to say it, but right now I think Houston has a real good shot against anybody.
You can hear K4Wins anywhere, obviously. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're up on every major indice. There's not one indice you cannot find the show. K4Wins, of course, watch us on our YouTube channel on Tony Kurre Radio. You can hear it back to back Friday night and Saturday mornings on the TKR app. And it's interesting enough because, and I'm one of these guys, but I'm not part of the committee. I didn't think Auburn should have gotten the overall number 1 seed. And despite the fact they do have that number 1 seed, they've got the 3rd lowest run to win a national title. Right now, they're plus 400, Florida plus 350, and Duke is plus 300. So right now, everyone's looking at Duke, and of course, they've won those last couple games without Cooper Flagg. Let's talk about Auburn because we are down here in the Southeast outside, of course, obviously, Case out there in Vegas. He's got his finger and thumb on the pulse of what's going on out there. But if you're an Auburn Tiger fan, you got something to worry about right now, Case?
Yes, I think so. First, I'll get to that first to backtrack because I just found that prop, and I actually am kind of tempted to bet it here. SEC minus 130, field plus 110. Oh. And this is at South Point, which has kind of made waves in the gambling industry this week because as soon as they opened these spreads at $10,000 limits, you never get $10,000 limits on college basketball this far ahead of time. So they are taking a lot of money. Wow. So I think there's someone that feels strongly in the SEC. To me, and I know I've been too high on Houston all year, but I've kind of pot committed now. If Cooper Flag's okay, Duke, I think, has the most equity to win the tournament, and I can't be convinced otherwise. And to me, Houston would be second. So I get my top two with the field. I might bet plus 110. To me, Auburn has slipped a little bit. I'm a little bit worried about the losses in 3 or 4. I think the one saving grace to me is their draw is not all that difficult to me. I don't really see where they're going to trip up. I bet them to make the Final Four when it opened or win the region, I guess, now since it was open at plus 105. It's now moved most places, I think, like minus 110, minus 120. But I mean, and I don't want to relitigate the whole Bruce Pearl thing, who I don't really think that highly of as a coach. I think he's a great recruiter, great putting people in the right places, great at building a staff, I think is the big thing. I mean, you look at Todd Golden, who I think might be the sharpest coach in the country and just so analytically sound and does all the right things. And I was actually looking, this is on the top of my mind as I was looking for some more Todd Golden information. I read a story when he got hired from at Florida. And I think this is why Bruce Pearl in his second stage at Auburn has kind of, I think he's thought more fondly of around the industry. I was covering college basketball a lot more during his time with Tennessee. And I can tell you a lot of coaches then didn't really like him, thought he was in above his head. And he was kind of arrogant at the time. Now he said about Todd Golden, he said, anytime we play Todd Golden's team, we're starting 10 points ahead. That's how much shrewder he is than me. That's how much better he is than me. And even if you watch like Auburn's games now, I see a lot of times in timeouts, like it's an assistant drawing up the plays. But anyway, not to get off on a Bruce Pearl rant, but I do feel like this is kind of out of the Bruce Pearl playbook. He's had a lot of teams in the past that seem like they kind of peak early and slow down. Kai would know better than me as a Tennessee fan, but I remember like one of those, maybe his first Tennessee team that was like the story of college basketball. I think they were number one. I think they ended up ducking out before the first weekend. I know he didn't make a Final Four at Tennessee. Maybe he made the Sweet 16 once or twice, but I don't know. I kind of feel like, I feel like a lot of his teams kind of aren't at their best when they get to the end of the season. I know they did make that one great run at Auburn to the Final Four. I think Golden might have been on the staff then, another feather in his cap. But so, yeah, I would say I can't believe it with how good Auburn had been all year. And we talked a couple of weeks ago on this show about how they were historically dominant. I said the numbers backed it up, even when you brought it up, Tony, and it was kind of eye-opening. But, yeah, I don't know. I do have kind of a nagging suspicion that they aren't the same right now. But all that being said, I think of the one seeds, I like their draw the most. So I do expect them to get to the Final Four.
We compared them to those 15-16 Kentucky Wildcats when everyone was taking about Kentucky or the field. The amazing thing, Auburn Tigers were 11-0 in first-round games in the NCAA until last season when, of course, they got tripped up in the first round against Yale. You're wearing that Tennessee shirt up there, and, of course, I kind of threw out a couple things against Rick Barnes this past week, and then you touche'd me over the weekend with some tweeties that I guess you just added the win total there. It is pretty amazing that when you talk about Tennessee, Rick Barnes has been coaching for 38 years and has only been to one Final Four. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that says. I mean, I know that he had all kinds of weird runs at Texas. He was always winning 20 games, just couldn't get past the first or second round. And of course, looking at his ATS, he's 11-23 against the spread the last 20 years. But has he ever had the kind of talent that he has right now, like Tennessee has? Kai?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the team was much better than this. Okay. I think this team is closer knit. And I was watching some idiot on ESPN talk about it. I can't remember which blabbering idiot they had talking about it, but it's important, for the end of the year. But I mean, they've got a difficult matchup, and actually, the only Tony Curry fact, the number 2 seed only made the finals once in the last 11 years. Yep. And in March, Barnes is 22-35 against the spread as a head coach. So, and I think that's just, I don't think that's, everything. I'm pretty sure that's just the interior.
I'm rubbing off on you, and I love that.
A lot.
That's right.
He just doesn't, he doesn't win a lot. I mean, it's just like, here's another one for you. 12 of the 13 first 4 teams have advanced to the second round since they've been doing the play-in. So, I mean, the first 4 teams, has advanced to the second round. So they won their play-in game and then won a game, which I thought was pretty cool. And Tennessee's draw is not horrible. They should beat Wofford. Otherwise, Rick Barnes may not have a job. I'm going to be interested to see what UCLA team goes up against that Utah State team, because I think Utah State can beat UCLA. If UCLA comes out and starts slow, Utah State will win that game. I really, this Texas Xavier game we could talk about. I don't want to go there. Really, Kentucky Troy. The matchup for Tennessee to get to the Elite Eight to make a little bit of a run is pretty good. And then if you think about it, though, two of the you've got in the top 8 seeds, which I think I saw the top 8 seeds: Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan State, St. John's. Strongest group of 1 and 2 seeds ever in the history of the NCAA field, and all of them would be a standalone 1 seed any other season. Combined, they have 148 quad 1 and quad 2 wins.
It's amazing. I do think Tennessee, I think it really rolls up really well for them in that bracket. I would not, and I'm not telling you this because I'm a Xavier fan, I'm surprised they got in. I'm surprised Texas got in too. I don't think you're going to have a problem there, but you do have a potential matchup against Kentucky again if they get it done in the first round. Kentucky, a weird team this year, Kip, man, 5-4 their last 9 games, 7-6 their last 13, and 8-8 their last 16. This is a 500 squad. I know they're playing in the SEC, and I realize the SEC is tough. And I remember when Alabama knocked them off earlier this season, I thought, wow, Alabama is really good. They just knocked off Kentucky. Not so much. This ain't your mama's Kentucky Wildcats.
Well, there was like 3 teams in the SEC where their signature win was against Kentucky. And by the end of the year, you were saying, well, that's not even a signature win. They're a 500 team,
Great point.
Because that, arguably, that was the big deal for Texas. That's one of the only reasons that they still thought they were kind of in it, because Texas was slip sliding away till they shocked the Blue Bloods Wildcats down in Austin. Georgia's early win of the year was against Kentucky in Athens. I mean, those are kind of lower to middling teams in the SEC. So Kentucky was vulnerable. I think you guys kind of didn't really lean my way on this one a couple weeks ago, but I was saying, everybody's hailing what an unbelievable job Mark Pope's done. I think he's done okay. It was all new players. He had injuries. But Case, what is the condition of their point guard? Is he going to be able to play? Because, man, did they fall apart the other night in the SEC tournament without him?
Yeah, not to say the same thing I said last time, but I agree with you guys. I don't think much of Kentucky. I have them dipping out in the round of 32, and I don't think that I'll change it. But I do think Mark Pope's done a really good job. I mean, this personnel is not a Kentucky team. These are not NBA guys on the floor.
Not 5-star recruits.
To me, and it's always weird. I'm kind of with a lot of people that complain about the committee that they put too much into the early season, these non-conference games. But there is a weird trend that these non-conference games are a lot more predictive than you think. And Kentucky had about as good of a non-conference as anyone. I think they beat Duke better than, Duke, I think, has 3 losses. The one was at Clemson. It might have been by more points, but, beating Duke on a neutral with a completely new team, it's hard to knock that down. I know that Pope has said Lamont Butler is playing. Didn't really sound like the most, it didn't give me the most confidence, though. He said he's playing. The NCAA tournament is different. This is for everything or whatever. So, clearly this injury is bothering him, and he's not going to be at 100%, but he is going to give it a go. To me, I feel like that should be enough to get past Troy. I've actually heard Troy kind of be a popular upset pick, and they are a really good team, but they're super young. I think they might be the youngest team in the field. I kind of feel like Kentucky's too sharp to losing in the first round again, so I feel like they'll get out of there, but I wouldn't expect too much out of them for that. But long term, I'm always buying futures for the year. You can't really buy futures for future years, but I think Kentucky's going to be a problem again in the SEC. I think once he gets his guys in there, I think stock on this program is up, and I think for them to grab a 3 seed this year, with what I said last time, I think this is their worst team personnel wise in 15 years. To get a 3 seed, I think this is a successful year no matter what, but I don't expect them. I like Tennessee way better in this draw as far as the bottom of the Midwest.
I think that Troy game could be fun. Troy loves to press up and down the floor all night long. They do turn the basketball over. I think it's like 15.6 times per game. They're in the top 3 in turnovers. So if Kentucky can turn them over early, it could get ugly real quick. Or if they make their threes, it could certainly be a game. I'll talk about just a few other teams, some perennials, some blue bloods, some teams we're used to seeing there. Everyone's talking about North Carolina. Yes, their quad 1s were non-existent. They were 8-0 in quad 2s. They end up getting in, and now that's the sexy pick. Everyone loves to take North Carolina because they weren't supposed to make it in, and now everyone's saying they can make a run in it. Kip, what's your thoughts on the Tar Heels right now? They look fantastic against Duke. Of course, they were doing it without Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I don't know. They did that against Duke in their last two games. The last regular season game, they had a big run early in the second half, and they forged ahead. They had a 6-point lead halfway through the second half and just collapsed. I think they're vulnerable early on here. They're the most controversial team in the tournament. A lot of people are just outraged that they're even included. And I think that could be a motivator that, we'll show them. But, the bottom line is we've seen them, toe to toe with many of the top teams in the country. And like Case always says, the numbers don't lie. They're 1-12 against that bunch of teams. And that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence coming into this. If they get into a mid-major or somebody that's got some personnel, I think they're really vulnerable.
You look at one of those teams like that, and I think, look at the schedule is really important. Everyone's talking about High Point, another sexy team. They've played 0 quad ones and 1 quad 2 game all year. Who tells? Who can tell what's going to be happening to this team? Another guy that everyone's talking about, St. John's, Rick Pitino. We know now that he has made the big dance 5 different times with 5 different teams. They've lost 4 games by a total of 7 points, 6 times. There you go. I thought it was 5 times with St. John's.
16. This is his 16. Is what they
I thought St. John's was his 5th. Anyway, he's a hell of a coach. He's a great coach. I wonder if, in fact, he's as good as everyone's saying, because a lot of people are saying the Big East guy this year is down a little bit. What do you think the Johnnies do? They could have a second-round matchup with Kansas, which would be pretty awesome.
Hey, but they could have a second-round matchup. You could have Patino Calipari. Yep. And we know how much those two love each other.
Oh, yeah. It's a love fest.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I would love to see that matchup. I think it'd just be great, for the NCAA tournament. Obviously they set it up that way, but also Kansas with where they are, that they kind of scare me because they're a little bit bigger than St. John's also. And I think Arkansas is overrated. I think it'd be a big mistake if they bring Flag, whatever his name is, back in to mess up what they've got going here recently. And I think Kansas would take advantage of that. But that'd be really interesting down there if you could get a St. John, Arkansas, or let's be honest, Bill Self's been pretty good at Kansas. What are they like in 8,000 tournaments in a row? Or whatever. I'm sure that they messed up, but I'm sorry, I'm just all over looking at this. I'll just hush and move to something else.
I think it might be like 35 tournaments in a row, and I got to say, I'm the Kansas graduate here, of course, and I'm biased. I think this is the worst team since I've gone to Kansas, so I followed them. But this was the exact draw I wanted them to get. Maybe,
were they not number one preseason?
Arkansas over some other 10 seeds, but when I knew they were going to be a 7 seed,
yes,
I wanted them against St. John's. Look, St. John's, I don't know who's going to be the national coach of the year. You can't bet on it, so I haven't really followed it. But to me, it'd be Rick Pitino, hands down. I feel like it's kind of similar to what I said about Kentucky. Maybe I'm too caught up on it, but I don't think St. John's personnel is that good, but they just play their ass off, and they're so fundamentally sound. They don't make any mistakes. So, totally hats off to Rick Pitino getting them to win both the Big East regular season and the tournament title. I just feel like they've way overachieved. Probably their second best player couldn't even get on the floor at Kansas. So Zuby Ejiofor, a Kansas transfer, another kind of interesting a matchup if it ends up being Kansas St. John. So, this Kansas team's like really unreliable. You can't really trust them, but I do think they're better than Arkansas. So I kind of expect them to win this. And then I have them beating St. John's too. I think this is a good matchup. You just look talent by talent, and what would the spread have been going into the season? Kansas St. John's on a neutral, like Kansas minus 9.5 or something.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be St. John's probably -5, maybe 4.5. And I know St. John should be favored. I just don't know. This is where I wanted Kansas to be as far as being an alum and rooting for them. But I do see their ceiling not very high, especially if Texas Tech comes out of the other pod. I would not see them beating Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. But I think it's a bad draw for St. John's and a good one for Kansas.
Kansas, preseason #1 team. They have a 7 seed. That's the lowest seed they've had in 25 years. Isn't that hard to believe? Just to make it into the big dance is one thing, but have a 7 seed, the lowest in 25 years, is amazing. Another team that no one's really talking about it. They were 22-10-1 against the spread. Tom Izzo has been to 8 Final Fours, has got Michigan State and sitting right where he wants, and they've got a really interesting draw coming up early on as well. Of course, they're going to be taking on Bryant, and everyone's talking about Bryant. I don't know if it's their first or second time into the Big Dance Kai. Everyone's looking for that 16-1 or that 215 because it's a sexy type of thing. This could be like the blowout. This could be one of those 83-35 ball games for me anyway for Michigan State. I think they do away with Bryant pretty quick.
I think so too. I mean, I'd go ahead and look at the matchup, and it's just going to be whether or not Marquette, New Mexico, which is an incredible matchup to me, two of the best point guards in the country on each team. That is going to be fun to watch. Of course, while we're talking about the dude from New Mexico, I can't remember his name. I mean, he can.
Donovan Dent. He's the guard is great. Yeah.
He can drop 30. He can get 8-10 assists. He creates his own shots. He creates for other people. I mean, he's freaking phenomenal, and he's one of the guards that I don't think many people have heard of, and are going to could get a great opportunity to watch him play 2-3 games.
All right, let's get through the bracket. We'll start with you, Kip. Give me some early upsets. Give me some things that you've seen that perhaps could trip some people up. I already mentioned, I put mine out. I got Auburn, Duke, Florida, Houston. I know I went chalk all the way. I tried not to go chalk. I hate going chalk, but I took the Final Four, the top 4 teams for only the second time if it happens. They are the 4 best teams, and of course, 7 in the last 8 years. Guess who's won the national title? 1 seed. So I got feeling pretty good about that job. But Kip, what are some early things you've seen that perhaps could be some upset cities in our brackets?
Well, I'll be interested to see if our Western expert agrees with these, because I mean he has kind of prompted me to watch a lot more of the smaller conferences out west than I normally would have. I stayed up really late the other night and watched the UC San Diego and UC Irvine game, and I was impressed what I saw. UC San Diego, I knew they were this kind of the running, gunning, Case had said last week on the show, and this is one of the main reasons I really wanted to see them play. I love teams that play just top speed, never slow down. But this team plays some hellacious defense too. I was really impressed with that team, because I think, Case was big on UC Irvine, but he said it's going to be a formidable challenge against San Diego. I thought those were 2 really good teams, and I enjoyed watching that game. But in Michigan, they win the Big Ten title, which really surprised me, because the second half of the season, they didn't play that well. They had a couple of stumbles, lost a couple games at home. They lost to Michigan State as a pretty sizable favorite, a 4 or 5 point favorite late in the year. I'd like to think that UC San Diego can pull a stunner, because everybody that's just a casual fan is going to pencil Michigan in there. Go, yeah, right, UC San Diego. But after watching them, I think this team's going to be a pain in the ass in that game, and I think they've got a really good chance. I'm going to stay in the out west with my second one. What Colorado State did in that tournament, they were really impressive too, from the Mountain West, and they got Memphis, who is a team that seems like they could be off or on. Of course, they vanquished Tony's UAB squad again, always the nemesis, but I'm not going to be a bit surprised to see the Rams rise up and maybe win that game. I've also got, let's see who else.
2.5 point favorite.
Yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
How about that?
That's only the second time, by the way, that we've had that favorite flip that way in NCAA tournament.
How about that? Now that surprises me. Yeah. I haven't really been able to scrutinize the lines yet. But I was on the campus about 3 weeks ago of McNeese State, and I was looking around and thinking, McNeese State, this is a real, not very significant university, but they are playing some big ball. I think they're one of the really hot teams in the country with a big, long winning streak. And they are playing in the first round Clemson, who I didn't think finished the season really impressively. Clemson, in the middle of the year, I thought was a real possible contender. I'm not going to be shocked. Another one of my first round specials. I'm going to take McNeese to shock the world knocked the Tigers out.
Well, you
sorry to Tony's son.
No, it's okay. McNeese, they only lost by 8 to Bama. They only lost by 3 to Mississippi State. So the Cowboys are pretty good, going to be a pretty good basketball team. You mentioned that 5-12 matchup that Colorado State, just the third time, that a 12 seed has been actually favored over a 5 in the last 20 years, which is pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, you picked some good ones, and of course, we're all looking at that 5-12, and I'm just going to go ahead and give mine real quick. Oregon is a team that's been really, really hot. They've won 8 games in a row until, of course, they went to their tournament time. Liberty is second in effective field goal percentage, 5th in the three-point field goals. I'm always really reluctant in picking teams that are really good in three-point lands because you live and die by it, but Liberty's been on fire this year. I really like this basketball team. That's at 5-12. I love the 12 with the 5 there. Actually, a Liberty knocking off Akron to go to the next round in that particular thing. On the other side, you mentioned UC San Diego and Yale. I've got Yale taking on A&M. Of course, A&M, we're 5-7 their last 12 ball games, so A&M wasn't exactly on hot. And Yale, the best offensive rebounding team in the nation this year, so I think they're going to be hitting the boards really good. I like their chances there. And then another team I think is really interesting, Drake. Drake has had just a really interesting year. UAB actually played Drake a little bit earlier in the season, and of course, a lot of people are talking about that perhaps one of the biggest games that you can have down at Bartow Arena. I'm thinking, Drake, really? They're a really good basketball team. So I like Drake to knock off one of our SEC teams. I am hoping this is not like something we saw in the Big East several years ago. And I think it was like 8 or 9 or 10 teams the Big East got in. And I think they're like 2-8 in their first 10 or something. I mean,
wow.
the Big East was decimated. I think it was maybe not that bad, but 4-6, they didn't do very well in the tournament. The Big East was out by the second or third weekend. So hopefully the SEC, because when you're doing these brackets, man, you got an opportunity to have a bunch of SEC games again, just because there are so many teams in the SEC. Kai, give me some upsets for me, brother.
All right, I'm gonna give you one and agree with you and back you up here. Liberty's 25-0 this year when holding opponents under 67 points.
Oh,
wow!
I don't think they're going to do that to Oregon, but that's okay. There's no way Akron beats Arizona. I think Arizona's going to come through and may beat Duke late in it. Just so you know, I'm gonna throw that out there. Anyway, and then also UC San Diego, third team in 50 years to make the tournament in their first year eligible, and their women's team did it also.
So wow, how about that?
Cool. I've already placed my Kentucky Troy over bet. I love that over 152. I think St. Mary's is going to beat Vandy. I don't like the way Vandy's been playing of late. The line's only 4. I'll take UConn. I got UConn -4. It's already up to 5 against Oklahoma. I can't pull the trigger on UC San Diego +2.5, even though they've won 30 straight. I like it. I really do. I think Colorado State's going to beat Memphis if Hunter, Henry, whatever the guy's not playing. I don't know that Haggerty and the big guy can do what they did against UAB. I think Colorado State's a little bit better team there. So, but I would also encourage people. We're going to put some futures up today, and I mean just for the tournament. We hit some futures. Some were easy, some were hard. St. John's, Florida, Duke, Houston, Memphis, and Gonzaga. We had as futures that we posted. So pretty good tournament record. We'll post them. We'll post everybody's top 4 there today.
K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. You mentioned St. Mary's. They are interesting ball squad. And, of course, they're playing some really, really good ball. They're 9-1 on the road this year. And I realize these aren't road games, but they, in a sense, are because they're neutral site games. And I mentioned Drake earlier, and I could not find the number, but it was worthy. They won 18 of their last 19 ball games. And Drake, by the way, is the best scoring defense in the country. They are better than Houston right now. They're giving up 58.9 points a ball game. So Drake's defense is stout. Case, what do you like? You're the man. We're all waiting to hear what you got.
I mean, I got a lot, but I would say the disclaimer would be tread cautiously in the NCAA tournament. Like I said, there's already places taking $10,000 a pop 5 days out. College basketball during the year, this is where a lot of professional gamblers make their money. It's a pretty inefficient market compared to other popular sports. There's no real widespread injury information. You have to do the work yourself. But I mean, this is the second biggest sporting event probably of the year, the biggest in terms of just betting volume. So these numbers are super tight. I don't think you're going to get rich betting NCAA tournament point spreads. That being said, I guess a few I agreed with you guys on. I do like McNeese and Liberty. I bet both of them plus 7.5. You said too reliant on the 3-point shot. That's what I want out of my out of my under. I mean, you can end up getting pie in your face and looking stupid if they're just bricking that day and they can lose by 30. But Oregon's just not a team that beats anyone by margin. I feel like they're getting really propped up for those few wins they had here at the MGM, where they beat Alabama and Texas A&M and San Diego State. But they've also had some real clunkers. They have like that 5-game losing streak. I'll also say, though, it's like an annual tradition that I lose money on Oregon in the tournament. I think Dana Altman, I have such a high opinion of. He brings out the best in the team every year. They're never very good, and he always he's just an incredible tournament coach, in my opinion. So I agree with you on Liberty, but a little cautious there. I do like McNeese. I think Clemson's style that they play this year, just a little bit slower, it leads them to upset possibilities, and I think McNeese matches up really well with them. I think that'll be a really close game either way. When the draw came out, I did think Michigan was pretty good, set up for UC San Diego, who I love and who was my guess to be the top ATS team in the country. As you heard, they got to be up there. They got to be top 5. They just been unstoppable. But it's a little too. This is the other thing in the NCAA tournament. Sometimes these public sentiments can get a little bit into the market. It's just a little too trendy for me. I mean, they got bet all the way down to 1.5 at one point. I bet Michigan
amazing.
I know, isn't that crazy?
I couldn't pass up the -1.5. I mean, Michigan still has those 2 7-footers, Danny Wolf, who we saw beat Auburn last year, and Vladislav Golden, who we saw get to the Final Four a couple years ago. And, by the way, that brings me to Rick Barnes, who I think gets a little bit too much hate for his tournament failings. A lot of times I just feel like he ran into bad situations. But the one that I cannot excuse is when they lost to FAU. I mean, the seas parted that year a couple years ago. They should have been in the Final Four that year. I can't believe they lost that game still. Sorry, kind of took me off my train of thought, but something else we talked about on the show. So, yeah, I had to buy some Michigan -1.5. I know it's back up to 2.5 right now. I think I made it 3.5, so it's pretty close, but I just I couldn't quite get there with that. I don't like I said, tread lightly, do this for entertainment, try to have some fun. Another underdog I bet, although the numbers gone, is I like Grand Canyon against Maryland. It's a team that by the numbers actually doesn't look as strong as I feel like they are. They were much better last year, but they dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Kind of their star, Tyon Gant Foster, was hurt much of the year. It looked like he was going to be hurt going into the WAC tournament, but he was back, and I mean, they just blew out everyone. Maryland's super young, of course, Derek Queen, the freshman, so I think they're kind of vulnerable. Another upset pick would be Grand Canyon. I mean,
the Antelopes.
Yeah,
Antelopes.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I was already at the selection show. I was just trying to set my numbers to from following these teams all year and betting the openers. So my biggest bets are things that I bet right at the open. I mean, my biggest bet technically is on the first game because one book here opened Louisville Creighton pick, which I thought was just wrong. So I slammed Louisville pick. But I mean, now that's like 3. It's kind of where I thought it would be. But that's going to be a big determinant of my Thursday. Right away is going to be that first game because I do like Louisville to win there. I just think defensively they're a lot better than Creighton. And kind of unfair. I talked about how Auburn got an easy draw, but kind of rough that they might have to play Louisville in Lexington, 100 miles from campus. Actually,
no kidding.
That might be the scariest matchup for them, in my opinion, until maybe even the Final Four. I guess just last thoughts is another thing we talked about on the show. I've been a North Carolina skeptic, but I am one of the people that really likes this draw. And I think it's ridiculous that they're in the tournament. There's no way they should have been in the tournament. I mean, it's okay because Bubba Cunningham recused himself from a room or whatever. But I think they get a good matchup with San Diego State, who's kind of like the mid-major version of them. I feel like they're getting along much of this year based on reputation and how good they've been in the past. Like, this is not a vintage San Diego State team. They're just awful offensively. They are really tough defensively, so maybe they turn into a grind and beat North Carolina. But I also bet North Carolina -3.5 at open in that game. And then I don't know. I don't think Ole Miss is any world beater if they get to that game. And then Iowa State without Keyshawn Gilbert, Taman Lipsey still hurt. I would love Iowa State at full strength. I think they could give Auburn a scare, but they're just not. They're not there right now. And I don't know. I think Michigan State has a lot of characteristics that they could be an upset potential too in the South. So again, I just don't like a lot of these teams in the South other than Auburn.
Sipsy is back, by the way, and Gilbert is out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Lipsey's just still beat up, though. I mean, I just don't think he's 100%.
There's no doubt. You mentioned Louisville, too.
Lipscomb plus 14 or 15 in that first game. might be a really good play.
A little interesting. Yeah, I saw that too. I've heard a lot about that. And you mentioned the Louisville Cardinals, 21-2 since December 14th, and one of those losses against the Duke Blue Devils. So the Louisville is one of those teams, again, like the Michigan State Spartans, you're not hearing a whole lot about. They're just having a hell of a great season. All right, great stuff, guys. Go to K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. Get all of our free plays up there. And, of course, you can subscribe. You can read some of the great blogs that Kip's put up there. We write some things up there. And, of course, our lines are changing. So are our plays every single day. So you can go back to the site numerous times per day, K4Wins.com. And very, very happy to announce it coming up this Saturday on, of course, the starting lineup on ABC 3340. Thanks to Kip Keefer. All four of us back on the show. Kai's, of course, going to be one of our guest hosts. We'll have that show, and we'll have more plays for you coming up on our show, 10:30, 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. Man, this is one of the greatest times in sports history every single year, March Madness. You guys have a great, great week. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on this week.
All right, let's get some upsets.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.